Over the break, we watched Wicked for Good, directed by John M. Chu.
I do feel like this second Wicked for Good or Wicked Part Two, however you want to call it, felt very rushed. It felt like everything they condensed everything in as minimum time as possible in order to just hit the arbitrary part one, part two limit. I feel like comparatively, um, part one was much longer and everybody was more fleshed out. In part two, everybody it just condensed a lot of storylines just to meet an arbitrary runtime.
It was like very packed, very convoluted. The characters' motivations didn't make any sense sometimes. People were just doing stuff because like we have to move the plot forward. And they would like react as their character for a second and then be like, oh wait, actually I need to be here doing this other thing. So let me just change my entire mentality of like how I think about these type of things and just shift completely and so we can get to the next part of the story. Like it was very it really didn't do anything for me. And even like Cynthia Erivo, who is the best part of these movies, to be honest, like she only had like one good song that I liked.
Mm.
Um so that was and even the reveal of like how our the characters that we knew turned into like the people in the Wizard of Oz story, it's just it didn't really feel like the weight of it just felt like completely nothing. Like it was like a nothing burger kind of.
Yeah. Of course, this movie is like almost a fan fiction interpretation of the original Oz. And it's also how it adapts those parts. Of course, recasting I guess Alpha's sister and as a disabled person. And then you have Dorothy talking about, yeah, when I saw the Wicked Witch, and she was flying through the air, and then the scene we're shown is her in her wheelchair on the ground, which is really weird considering the fact that a couple scenes before we see Alpha give her shoots that make her float and fly, but they don't showcase her floating and flying before, she eventually gets crushed. So I was like, that sequencing made no sense in my head. Um, I thought stuff like the transition from, I guess, what's his name, Bog, the Tin Man, really toxic as a person, you know, and they made it a real stretch as to how he becomes a Tin Man. You know, as far as, hey, I don't like you. I really like Glenda the Good Witch. I'm just here because I'm a nice guy. And then, yeah, she's getting married. I gotta go confess my love to her and they're both toxic people. It's like, but I love you. And she's like, yeah, but I don't like you. I like her. And her anger uses her sister's spells and tries to take his heart away. And then him, being upset is like, yeah, I will do anything for Glenda. So, screw you. I'm gonna kill your sister. And I was like, y'all are both toxic. Y'all are actually low key perfect for each other. But those leaps of, but those leaps also didn't really make sense in my head. And of course, the cowardly lion is a lion that was trapped in his cage. He's like, yeah, she set me free, but now I can't do anything for myself. Like, how is that her fault? Like you would have been cowardly if you would have been cowardly if you stayed in the cage. Like, what are we doing here? And then of course, you know, Firo. I that's one of the parts I really wish because we didn't spend much time in seeing Alphaba and I guess Jonathan Bailey. I'm not going to use his character's name because I can't pronounce that shit. The Prince or Scarecrow. We never really saw their relationship reach to the point where they're both mutually attracted to each other in the first one. So it kind of came out of nowhere to me. I don't know if it felt that way to you. And then the whole him turning into the Scarecrow, and we kind of know he kind of turns into the Scarecrow, but then him knowing that he loves Alphaba, he decides, yeah, I'm gonna go with Dorothy, and I know the wizard sucks, but I'm still gonna go with the wizard, yeah, and I'm gonna go join the mob that wants to kill the woman I love, that like that whole sequence, like it made no sense to me at all, and I feel like those are sequences and parts in the book that I think were fleshed out that they could have used in the movie, but they're strictly adherent to try and reach this PG rating for marketing purposes, basically to reach younger kids. Let's be honest, and the strict adherence to try and reach that rating, I think, really weakened the story they were trying to tell.
I will say the production design was
Yeah,
incredible. The the costume designing was fabulous. Everyone looked amazing. And again, the performances were still really good and strong. So like those elements are still there. It really was to me just like story and writing. Like that's what kind of made
Disconnect.
this movie fall apart for me because this movie very much focuses on Glinda. As the first part was more Alphaba's story, now this second part is more Glinda's story. We get like more background about like her and stuff. The issue with her is that like she doesn't really have a personality, so there's not like much to pull out there. Like she was always popular as a child, and whenever she didn't get something that like she wanted, or whenever she would feel like empty or not fulfilled or whatever, like she would just get over it. Like that was
Yeah.
like there wasn't like an incentive for her to like grow or change really until she meets Alphaba. And even though she meets her and they become friends, there's this whole back and forth of her like wanting to stick to the status quo and not try to make trouble, and then also like lean into like I don't know what alphabet teaches her about like being an individual and stuff. But like she never like gets to a point where she's like, okay, I'm either one or the other. Like I'm not gonna go fully to Elphaba because I like being popular and I like being, thought of as good and positive and whatever. And then but she also doesn't want to lead too much into that too because she's learned some lessons about life and she's grown a little bit. So it kind of made her character feel a little uneven and not complex enough for me. Like I just felt like she learned some lesson, but not really. And she was kind of leaning in, but she didn't really want to commit to that leaning in. So it was just a little kind of all over the place with her character. And I think Ariana only could I think she can only do so much with that just because it's just like, what what is the character of Glinda ultimately? I don't
Yeah.
know. Like I still don't know, even though we spent like 2 hours with her. I have no idea. Like she walked around her ballroom in a nice pink dress, like and cried. Like I know that.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't have any more details, unfortunately. So that was kind of like, okay. So that really dragged it down. And then the reveal of these characters becoming like Fiero becoming the
Scarecrow.
Scarecrow or Bach becoming Tin Man or whatever. I was just like, really? Like that's how we're getting here. They
Yeah.
didn't show Dorothy at all. Like she was a non
Factor. Mhm.
factor in this entire movie. Like they could have took her out and nothing would have changed. Like I was just like, okay, because then they were trying to like rush in that story and put that in the ending of it of like, okay, remember the Wizard of Oz? Like remember the whole thing of like why we're making Wicked? It's this story. These characters that you knew are now these people, and it's just like it was way too rushed and it kind of was nonsensical. And then Fiero becoming Scarecrow, I was just like, really? Like that's what we're doing with this character? That's annoying. Because I actually liked his relationship with Alpha, but I thought that
Yeah.
was cute. Like the fact that he joins the army or whatever, whatever the Oz equivalent of that is, to protect her because he knows that they're going after her and he's trying to like protect her from dying. It's like, okay, I thought they had a cute little rapport in the beginning. They expanded it in the second one. I was like, fine. But then for them to do that to his character, I was just like, boo, tomato, tomato, tomato. Like, I don't care. So, like, that, and then also the ultimate reveal of Oz being her dad, which we already knew.
I mean,
So it
I
was just
didn't,
like,
but you know,
it was that all of that story stuff really just didn't land for me at all. All the songs were like ballads, and none of them were like fun and catchy. Cynthia has one, No Good Deed, which is kind of rocky. I was like, okay, that's cool. Everyone else, whatever. Like it kind of sounded like the same song after a while, which I hate. I hate when they do that. And then Michelle Yeoh and Jeff Goldblum, no offense to them, not good singers at all. And Jonathan Bailey, he was struggling along too. So like that was tough because it's like because the songs were more slowed down in ballads, like you could really hear the vocal performances, and some of them were not hitting, especially when you're up against like Ariana Grande and Cynthia. Like
I mean,
it wasn't great.
yeah.
It wasn't great. So those were my issues with the movie. I just felt like this part two, and I already knew it kind of going in because everyone had already been saying that the second part of the play was not as good. So
Mhm.
I was just like, and then I heard that John had already used all the good songs in the first part. So I was like, okay, so what is the second part going to be really? Like, I was already concerned.
And honestly, and if you know you don't have enough songs, and okay, and you already know the second part in the play is the weakest, cool. We have part one, solid finish. Let's decide to split this up into three parts. And then at least okay, we have a certain point. We have a certain point to get the second part right. Flesh it out. We might not have a lot of musical pieces, but we can flesh out the story there, and then the rest of the movie the same process. Instead of hard line like part one, part two. This is what we got. This is what we deal with. I felt like that was a bad idea. Um, but I don't know, this movie, it was a real letdown, and I was already going into it like not wanting to watch it anyway,
Mm.
and this just solidified my view
Really,
of it.
to
And
me, it was disappointing because the first one is so good. Like, I
Mhm,
remember watching the first one, not even wanting to watch it, but watching it anyways and being like, this is fantastic. So for the second one to come out, almost just as like an obligation, like we have to do this part.
mhm.
Um, I don't know. It just didn't sit right with me because I was just like, it kind of felt like we're gonna make it because there's a whole marketing infrastructure built into it. Like
Oh, it's a big marketing
it's
infrastructure.
a
Like it's a
huge
huge marketing.
it's a huge enterprise,
Yeah.
this Wicked franchise. Like it's huge. So like I understand why they did it from a like economic business like standpoint where it's just like we're going to make as much money as we can from this as even if it's not as good, it doesn't matter. Get the girls back out there like we're doing it. But just as like a story, I don't know. It felt like kind of a waste of time.
Did you like that clip? Well, you can listen to the entire podcast because the 16 millimeter Film Crew podcast is available on all major podcast platforms.